Welcome to the third Wednesday Vesper service sponsored by the Unitarian Universalist Multiracial Unity Action Council. Tonight, the sermon is called Who Harms? Exploring Theologies of Sin and Redemption. And our speaker is Senje Wekoye, who is an ordained minister holding degrees and certifications in communications, psychology, business administration, disability advocacy, Unitarian Universalist and interfaith theologies, leadership, and spiritual direction. And what I find very interesting about her is she's born in Ohio, but she spent many of her formative years between ages of 6 and 17 living in a tiny village in Kenya. So her native language really is a dialect of Swahili, which is the reason you'll see there's a little accent in her voice. That's where it comes from. But she's been back here now, for since age 17. And let me talk a little bit about our organization before introducing to her. We envision our congregations, associations, and communities as not being color blind, but color appreciative, as judging and treating people by the content of their character, not the color of their skin, their cultural heritage, or other identity, and as treasuring diversity in the context of Martin Luther King's beloved community. We call this vision multiracial unity. This is the goal, this is the mountaintop, this is the prize on which we keep our eyes, the unity of the light and dark-skinned people of the world. Our next service is the third Wednesday in August 19th. Our preacher will be the Reverend Ms. Denise Tracy, who's with us tonight. Her sermon is called Beyond Words, Seeing Beyond Our Assumptions, Learning to See to the Heart of Life. And if you have gotten a Zoom link from this email address for this service, you'll get another one next month. It's only if the link for this service was forwarded to you by someone else that you should go there. If you'd like to get the link for the next service, just send an email to bjeanwalsh@outlook.com. And finally, we are a membership organization. Membership is $40 a year. You can take it off your taxes. Our goal is the unity of the light and dark-skinned people of the world. And now I give you Wekoye.
Heaven bent to take my hand and lead me through the fire. Be the long-awaited answer to a long and painful fight. Truth be told, I've tried my best, but somewhere along the way I got caught up in all there was to offer, and the cost was so much more than I could bear. Though I've tried, fallen, I have sunk so low, I messed up better, I should know. So don't come round here and tell me I told you so. We all begin with good intent. Raw and young, we believe that we could change ourselves. The past can be undone, but we carry on our back the burden time always reveals. In the lonely light of morning, in the wound that would not heal, it's the bitter taste of losing everything I held so dear. So low, I messed up once I thought were friends, to everyone I know. Oh, they turn their heads embarrassed, pretend that they don't see that it's one misstep, one slip before you know it. And there doesn't seem a way to be redeemed. Though I've tried, falling, I had sunk so low, I've messed up better, I should know. So don't come round here, tell me I told you so. I'm messed up better, I should know. Don't come round here, tell me I told you so.
It is good to be with all of you again today. I am happy to be with friends. Today we are going to light our chalice, the one behind me. I invite you to light your own chalice if you happen to have one with you, or to light an embodied chalice by simply holding your hands together, or any other way that you might want to acknowledge the ritual of coming into this sacred space together. And the words I selected today are from A Treatise on Atonement by Hosea Ballou, published in the year 1812, and several other iterations as well. And he writes, "The streams and rivulets which water the hill country run in every direction as the make of the land occasions. They are stained with various mines and soils through which they pass. But at last they find their entrance into the ocean, where their different courses are at an end, and they are tempered like the fountain which receives them." We got a head start with Reverend Denise asking us about what was fun in our day or recently. And I want to offer this moment for some small sharing of joys and sorrows. If there is something that you want to share with all of us, if there is a weight on your shoulders or a joy in your heart, kindly unmute and share with us, and we'll share for maybe 5 minutes or so. So kindly the abbreviated versions that we might have enough time for all of us.
Ellen, go ahead. Oh, unmute yourself, though.
I have a sorrow. The forests are burning in Canada and Minnesota. I have a connection to Minnesota, and it's terrible. The people and the animals.
Mhm. So some of you have heard that the UUA is trying to disfellowship me. The MFC did vote unanimously to disfellowship me, but now there's a provision whereby I can appeal that decision, and I have written a letter to what's called the Board of Review, which is a completely different group of people, and I haven't heard anything, but that's in progress.
Well, Richard, I am sorry to hear about that action being taken. It seems an effort without any real meaning other than spite. But my joy, which I was about to tell Denise, is my granddaughter again visited. She's 16 months old, I believe now. And I'm beginning to see that she is the young baby I was when my grandparents were alive. And I remembered so little of them. So I'm making a real effort now to preserve some of the history of myself and my grandparents so she would know she comes from a long line of individuals who really struck out in this country, immigrants coming from Poland, that created a great life for many generations that came, including hers.
Well, I've had about 5 days with my grandchildren, my 3 grandchildren, my daughter, my daughter's husband, and my son on the shores of Lake Michigan. And we just have had a wonderful time. I have a grandson who loves digging holes. I mean, huge holes. I make him fill them so that people don't fall in them at night when they're walking on the beach. But you know, I love the fresh water, and it's just gorgeous here in the dune area. So I've been having a good time.
I just wanted to say that I'm so grateful to be here. I've spent most of the day doing video production and was quite tired. And then I remembered that, Wekoye, you would be leading this today. And I recall many times seeing you in other locations online, and I just really wanted to join. So thank you for offering this today.
Okay, I'll jump in quickly. I've been trying to get a speaker for upcoming fall convocation. Been working on it for several weeks. It's been difficult with various legal organizations, and it looks like finally I've gotten feedback. We do have a speaker lined up. I have to go send a communication to the my contact at the ACLU of Illinois to get the needed speakers, direct phone number and email and so forth, and work things out. But it looks like after about close to 2 months with different organizations, a little relief from that, little frustration. So.
May we hold our hands open for the joys and the sorrows that were shared, and all of those which we just kept quietly to ourselves, because we know they are more than what we can speak. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me. Then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go to visit you? The king will reply, truly I tell you, whatever you did for the least of these, you did for me. We are talking today about who harms and what is harm, why is there harm, and the underlying ideologies that come from different cultural orientations and religious orientations that give us this understanding of what is harm, who harms, and what should we do about it anyway. Going back to one of our founding American Universalists, Hosea Ballou, and his treatise on atonement, He tells us, I am a fool and yet I am wise. I am weak and yet I am strong. I am impure and yet I am pure. I am unholy and yet I am holy. I am condemned and yet I am justified. I am a vessel of dishonor and yet I am a vessel of glory. I am dead and yet I live. I lost my life and yet I gained it. I fell in the field of battle and yet gained the victory. Reverend Trudeau. I am perishable. I am a perishable worm of the dust and yet an immortal spirit. I love the way he juxtaposes this idea of holiness and unholiness, that it is something that resides in each one of us, the holy and the unholy together. And as we come and look at harm, we ask questions. Is it rooted in individual choices, in broken systems, in spiritual separation, in fear, in injustice? How do communities understand harm, accountability, healing, and redemption? Harm is real. When we go outside and we step on the earthworm that has been washed up onto the sidewalk and the earthworm dies, the harm to that earthworm is real. When our forests ignite in wildfire because we've been throwing our trash away and increasing the temperature of the earth, the harm is real. Every one of us engages in harm in some capacity or other. And we all also engage in the actions of caring and of love. And how do we hold within ourselves this recognition and understanding that we are both the harm doers, the harm receivers, and the redeemers of harm? There is an author I read recently and really appreciated, who wrote a book titled Breaking Hate, Confronting the New Culture of Extremism, which was published in 2020. He writes, and his name, by the way, is Christian Piccolini, "No one is born to hate. I have found this bit of rare insight to be more powerful than any weapon Smith & Wesson can forge. For those who align themselves with extremist ideologies, doctrine is but the final component that locks into place. Radical ideologies and extremist movements act like green traffic lights, signaling those who have stalled in life where to direct the blame for their grievances, anger, insecurities, sometimes in violent ways, instead of working to resolve their obstacles in a positive or healthy way. Feeling newly empowered, the cruelty that extremists adopt is a fraudulent license that grants them permission to project their pain onto others." He goes on to say, "I've learned the only way to break this cycle of hate we are stuck in is not to distance ourselves from the problem, but to invest in one another and in our failing human infrastructure. Instead of attacking harmful ideas for their ignorance, I draw them in closer, knowing that beneath their protective armor of hate is a fractured human who is wearing it to mask their agony, shame, and fear. If we can acknowledge that underlying environmental, emotional, and/or physical challenges for any multitude of challenging life factors are what give people their first push towards extremism and not the other way around, then hope exists of diverting future generations from its devastating path altogether, and redemption is possible for those who still wander lost." Where do we come from? Spoiler alert, we all come from the Homo sapiens, although we do have a little bit of other human species mixed in, some of us do anyway, because we basically annihilated the other ones. So I read another good book, parts of it anyway, by Yuval Noah Harari, Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind, published in 2011. He says, we don't know exactly when and where animals that can be classified as Homo sapiens first evolved from some earlier type of humans. But most scientists agree that by 150,000 years ago, East Africa was populated by sapiens that looked just like us. And then, about 70,000 years ago, so halfway through that process from today, sapiens from East Africa, including from my home, Rift Valley in Kenya, well, a different part of Kenya I'm from, but from my country, Kenya, spread into the Arabian Peninsula, and from there, they quickly overran the entire Eurasian landmass. So what we know from this is that when humans migrated out of Africa and took over all the other types of humans, or sapiens, they carried with them their spiritual ideas. They carried with them their origin stories of how they came to be, of what to do about harm, how to redeem or come into restoration when harm had happened. And they planted those ideas across the other continents, which then germinated and grew into all these different types of traditions of spiritual understanding. So I'm going to go very quickly through ideologies of harm and restoration, sin and redemption. You can use different language to describe it, for about 9 different traditions. And so I invite you to just open up and listen to this brief overview and to contemplate where your ideologies or theologies of harm, wrongdoing, sin, and redemption, restoration, salvation might come from in your own theologies. Look for the similarities, look for the threads, compare and contrast. So in Buddhism, the human problem or the reason for harm is ignorance, craving, and attachment, which causes the suffering and the cycle of rebirth. Following the Noble Eightfold Path, cultivating wisdom, ethical conduct, and mental discipline, those are the pathways to restoration, to enlightenment. In Hinduism, ignorance of an individual's true nature and actions, karma, are the things that are the understanding of harm and that bind the soul into a cycle of rebirth. Wrongdoing or harm creates a negative karma. Of course, those actions that are of good character also create good karma. So liberation, also called moksha, is through a combination of following a variety of paths, either together or really devoting to one. And these are paths of devotion, knowledge, selfless action, and meditation, depending on which tradition of Hinduism you might be adhering to. May I also add the disclaimer, this is such a high-level overview, and I hope it encourages you to go spend more time looking into some of these other traditions. Whole lifetimes are spent studying these other traditions, and so much wisdom can be gained from studying some of these other traditions, maybe ones which you are less familiar with. Confucianism. Harm stems from moral failure, poor character, a lack of virtue, and a failure to fulfill social and family duties. One comes into restoration or redemption through moral cultivation, by education, cultivating your virtue, ritual, propriety, and harmonious relationships. In my traditional Luya culture, Harm doing is created by disharmony with ancestors, with community, or through breaking taboos, certain ways of life, breaking those, and then one enters into harm. And restoration is created through reconciliation, rituals, sacrifices, and offerings, and engaging in respect for ancestors and the community. In free will Arminianism Christianity, because we know there are many different kinds of Christianity, harm doing comes from sin, which is a rebellion against God, and sin is the thing that separates humans from God. In Christianity, this kind of Christianity, there is original sin. Every human is born with sin, and the only way to achieve redemption or salvation is to accept, to actively make the choice to accept the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ, and accepting that gift of salvation. And that is the action that brings one into reconciliation or redemption. In Taoism, harm doing and suffering comes from living contrary to the Tao, forcing things and losing your natural inner harmony. The pathway to reconciliation or redemption is returning to harmony with the Tao, living a life of simplicity, balance, humility, and effortless action. In Islam, harm comes from disobedience to Allah's guidance. Different than Christianity, however, every person is born in a state of spiritual purity called fitra. And one returns to that state of spiritual purity through sincere repentance, through having faith, through righteous actions, and because of Allah's mercy, forgiveness. That is what restores one to that reconciliation. In Judaism, harm doing is a natural human inclination. It is a violating of God's covenant and commandments. And all humans, all of us, possess both good and evil inclinations. One goes on the path of redemption through repentance, prayer, good deeds, justice, and God's forgiveness. That restores the relationship with God, which then in turn restores relationship with our community. In some of the founding peoples' traditions of the American continent, harm is understood as an imbalance or broken relationships between community, nature, and the spirit world. As with other traditions, beliefs vary widely, and that is a small synopsis of one of the beliefs. And then healing or redemption or reconciliation comes through ceremonies, through proper living, through reconciliation, and through respect for creation, thereby restoring the harmony with the spiritual world and with community. In Wicca, which is a more modern version built on some of the pagan traditions that primarily come from the European continent, there is also no doctrine of original sin, and harmful actions or harm comes from engaging in harmful actions, which disrupt spiritual and ethical balance. And there is a ideology called the Wicca Reed, which is, I'm going to skip that because I have a typo there, so I want to skip that. However, returning to redemption requires taking personal responsibility for your behavior through engaging in ethical living, spiritual growth, and a focus on balance. And some believe that actions return to the individual, kind of like karma, and can be called the threefold law. In humanist viewpoint, humans are inherently good and oriented toward goodness. Harm and suffering is a destructive behavior that is the result of unfulfilled basic needs, a negative or fractured self-concept, restrictive societal or environmental conditions that block natural goodness. The excerpt that I read by Christian Piccolino really engaged in that ideology, that these extremist ideas that we have been exposed to, racism and other kinds of extremist ideas, that those are derived from a brokenness rather than an inherent badness within the individual. And then in humanist ideology, again, a snapshot, one way some humanists might understand it, reconciliation is achieved through self-actualization, through realization of your potential, through personal growth, through self-determination. And there is a strong focus on science, social sciences and physical sciences, and on reason as methodology for achieving this kind of individual and communal self-actualization. In universalism, focusing on the teachings of Hosea Ballou, humans are good and created in the image of love. Why does harm happen? Harm happens because the law of divine love is an infinite law. Meanwhile, humans are finite and have only a finite ability to strive towards the infinite law of love. Therefore, it is ignorance or human inability that is the cause of suffering and harm. In universalism, all have the birthright of redemption, salvation, and ultimate reunification with the universe of love. So therefore, in human life, we don't need to strive for it for the purpose of the salvation of our soul, so to speak. Rather, in universalist understanding, as expressed by Reverend Hosea, the main objective for doing good works is our current happiness. That when we do good, we feel good, we experience good. And so we do good kind of selfishly, but I will extend it with my Luya communal understanding that when we do good, all of us experience the benefit of the good doing. Our communities also experience happiness when we do good. So what can we take away from doing this brief survey of a variety of traditions? That some see harm doing as a disobedience to the universe, to something bigger, to God, Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. All of those Abrahamic traditions do place some higher moral standing, that when we do harm, we have violated some higher moral law. Several traditions see ignorance as the actual problem, the reason why we engage in harm doing, Buddhism, Universalism, and many schools of Hinduism. So rather than any kind of original sin, it is our ignorance and inability that result in our harm doing. Some see disharmony as the central issue of why harm occurs. Taoism, Confucianism, the traditional Luya tradition I come from, indigenous American traditions, and Wicca all emphasize restoring harmony with nature and society, with ancestors, with the spiritual order. Some see redemption by divine grace. Christianity emphasizes God's grace through Jesus Christ. Islam and Judaism emphasize God's mercy together with repentance and faithful living. Liberation through transformation. Buddhism and Hinduism focus on liberation from the cycle of rebirth and through spiritual transformation. I will also say that Unitarian Universalism focuses on redemption through liberation, looking at the liberation of our societies from some of the social harm doings that happen through the social structures that create systems of harm. And in Universalism, it is taught that love's redemptive work extends to everyone, although different Universalist traditions also explain that in different ways. Some talk about a purification period, others see us just as returning to love at the point of our departure from this place here. I offer you a quote from Marcy Amber Oduyoye from her article, What Does God Ask of Us? Ethical Issues in the Struggle for Justice, which was published in 1998. In the wisdom and religious belief of Africans, we human beings are linked with the earth and nature around us. Although we know although we know ourselves to be children of God. We know that we depend on the earth, the sea, the rivers, all of nature to sustain the life God has given us. But also that there is a living spirit in all of this created life that we must recognize and honor. We, all human beings, share one human nature, and our future depends on this. Recent experiences remind us of how easily we can share and spread death around. Our future depends on sharing and spreading life to all peoples. Peace and well-being of the whole of creation is one agenda. We all share the same agenda, bringing us back to the vision of UUMUAC, the unity of all peoples. Parker J. Palmer, another author who I so much appreciate, writes in Healing the Heart of Democracy, published in 2011. We must judge ourselves by a higher standard than effectiveness, the standard called faithfulness. Are we faithful to the community on which we depend, to doing what we can in response to its pressing needs? Are we faithful to the better angels of our nature and to what they call forth from us? Are we faithful to the eternal conversation of the human race, to speaking and listening in a way that takes us closer to truth? Are we faithful to the call of courage that summons us to witness the common good, even against great odds? When faithfulness is our standard, we are more likely to sustain our engagement with tasks that will never end, doing justice, loving mercy, and calling the beloved community into being. Whichever theology you embrace, whichever reason you use to understand the harm we do, the harm we experience, the harm we witness, whichever theologies you use to understand how you call forth your own faithfulness, to be committed to the work that never ends, the work that we must keep on doing. I invite you to contemplate those again. May we confront harm truthfully. May we seek justice courageously. May we practice mercy generously. And may we remember that redemption begins whenever we choose to restore one another rather than abandon one another. I close with the words from another scripture that I adore. Because we are all beloved, and I call you to listen to your belovedness in these words. My beloved spoke and said to me, "Arise, my darling, my beautiful one, come with me. See, the winter is past, the rains are over and gone. Flowers appear on the earth. The season of singing has come. The cooing of doves is heard in our land. The fig tree forms its early fruit, and the blossoming vines spread their fragrance. Arise, come, my darling, my beautiful one, come with me."
relationships. Minute after they took God from the bottomless pit, but my hand was made strong by the hand of the Almighty. We forward in this generation triumphantly. Won't you help to sing another songs of freedom? Was all I ever heard. Redemption song, redemption song. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Have no fear for atomic energy, 'cause none of them can stop the time. And how long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? And some said it's just a part of it. Well, we've got to fulfill the book. Won't you help me sing another song of freedom? It's all I ever had. Redemption song, yes Lord. Redemption song. Redemption song. Come on with me, people. Come on with me, children.
Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Have no fear for atomic energy, 'cause none of them can stop the time. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Some say it's just a part of it. We've got to fulfill the book.
So won't you help me sing another song of freedom? It's all I ever had. Oh, yeah. Redemption song, yes Lord. Redemption song. Redemption song. Redemption song. Songs of freedom.
As we go into our conversation, I put a couple of questions in the chat to perhaps guide our reflection. What are your theologies of harm and reconciliation? And what does redemption require for us and for our communities?
Alan has his hand up.
All right, sir.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Alan.
Okay, so my personal theological orientation is that of process theology, so which is kind of another part of the mix that you were sharing. And so as part of process theology, you know, I feel that through evolution and so forth, we've been blessed with free will and also the creative spirits. And because we have free will, you know, hopefully we can use most of that time, we can use that for good, but we're human, we're imperfect, and sometimes we'll use free will and make the wrong choices that could cause harm to the environment or other people or whatever, either intentionally and unintentionally, whatever. And there's a lot of things that go into that. You're young, it may be immaturity. At any point, you could be lack of imperfect knowledge, etc. We're human. We're going to make errors or harm, along the way. But we also are blessed with creative spirit, and with that, I believe that's our responsibility to use that to try to work toward a more beloved community and try to do things that are going to make for a better planet, better creation, better interrelationships with others. And again, we're not perfect people, but if that's the goal and we're trying, I think we'll, on balance, be making progress in that direction. And I guess you would say that's your redemption. So enough said.
Mm-hmm. I personally like to think of the fact that my brain has so many parts that evolved at different times. There's a brain that's pretty much like the brain of a fish, and and so on. And my prefrontal cortex, the thing that we say makes me human, is really just a late addition, and all those other parts of the brain are still functioning. So if something happens, my different parts of the brain respond in different ways, and it's all happening at the same time, which is why I get confused. And it's it's uh, it's not anything wrong with me. It's just that that's the way evolution works. Evolution keeps tinkering. It keeps taking old stuff and modifying it a little bit and adding new stuff, but the old stuff never goes away. It's like putting a new heating system in a house, but people have to live there and be warm throughout the process. So you can't just start over. Well, anyway, enough. The reason we shouldn't feel guilty or feel we have original sin is that our brains are such a mishmash.
Well, I am thrilled that you opened with Matthew 25. My senator from here in Georgia, Reverend Raphael Warnock, of course, now preaches at the same church where Dr. Martin Luther King once stood in the pulpit. He was on one of the news shows and describes himself as a Christian. Then he paused. I'm a Matthew 25 Christian. And then he recited several of the verses. And even though I'm a UU, I find Matthew 25 a strong way of unifying. But I also understand, and this goes back to, I hate to put politics into this, but a first Trump administration when children were being removed from their parents at the border. That was not Matthew 25 at all. It's not Matthew 25 today in Houston or in Maine or back in Minnesota. There is something wrong with our society at large right now, and we've lost some common denominator, some common focus. So I'm not naive that folks will immediately be changed and transformed, but there is something we need to hold on to and then project. So I'm really happy you did that. I use it quite frequently to recenter myself. So thank you so much.
Wekoye, I loved how you brought us right back to the beginning, and reminded us that we are all one. Essentially, we came from the same place, very likely going to the same places. That interconnectedness is really the root of my theology. And it's interesting when, as a minister serving a congregation, when Easter comes around, that's often a challenging sermon, because my theology is that we're all each other's saviors. And I feel like that, I found that in what you said today as well. You know, we all are harming, we all are healing. And it's something that we each need to recognize and decide which part are we going to play in this.
Justin has his hand up. Go ahead, Justin. Unmute yourself, though. Unmute yourself, Justin.
Can you hear me? Okay. It's up to us. I'm not a pure humanist at all. I like what Richard's description is, a humanist for Jesus. That describes me fairly well. But it's up to us to bring this about, and that's kind of a heavy thing, but we cannot expect some kind of divine intervention to straighten out this mess that we're in right now. That's it.
And Christensen wants to talk, I think.
Yeah. Harm comes at many levels. Harm in families, harm in communities, harm in churches, harm in the nation. A basic I think about is trying to be honest, direct, and kind as much as possible. I think we have to work with others. Community organizations come to mind when you're dealing with the local problems of the world, and larger organizations for the national problems. But kindness and directness and awareness that we may be causing problems, but hey, where we do something because we believe in it, I think we need to keep doing it and acknowledge that different people see things differently. Try to communicate, but it can be very hard.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Wekoye. I especially loved listening to your voice. You know, it's just the idea that you have a life experience that's different than mine. I value that so much, because you have often a different perspective that I haven't considered, and I appreciate that very much.
I also appreciate not only Matthew 25, but your reference to Hosea Ballou.
Yes.
And I have read him extensively. His writing is just so hard to penetrate. But there are gems when you put your mind to it. So his sense of sin, the harm, is not a violation of God's order, as he says. It's really us as humans, and I need to make sure I get this quote, our imperfect knowledge of moral good. And I use this to say in one of the talks I gave, you know, God would not be cannot be mad at us because of our imperfect knowledge. It would be like giving, as I shared in one sermon, a child a calculus problem and then being furious with the child for failing to answer it. So harm can be done just because we're doing our best. But I want to put a period to that and go back to what I said before. There are others who are doing harm intentionally. And I think we need to recognize that we can't bring a knife to a gunfight, that there's serious problems that we need to address. And how to find common knowledge and ground escapes me enormously.
Thank you all for adding your theologies. What do we do with those people who look like they are intentionally harming? Because we all know those people, right? Some of them live in our own families, or we are married to them. Some of them are our children, right? Some of them are political leaders. How do we hold compassion even when someone appears to make a deliberate choice over and over for harmful behavior? So I think that's a challenge that we all have to come well equipped with, to try and hold compassion even in the face of very difficult compassion-giving circumstances. Why? Because it gives our own heart compassion and peace. We do it for ourselves at the end of the day, right? When we choose compassion, we choose a road of happiness for ourselves.
David.
Yes, I think that one of the things that helps me is having compassion. And when you think about your enemy, like I was in the Vietnam War, and one of the things, and thinking afterwards is that having compassion and understanding your enemy. Why did they do what they did? And it helps you make better sense of things. And kind of along with that, I'm always impressed. Jake talked a little bit about the Bible and how it can guide you. And every once in a while, you'll hear a family that has been a victim of a crime. And the people will say, I forgive that person. And it's like, because a lot of them, they never get to that point. They want revenge and to hurt. But for other people, they begin the process within themselves of healing when they have a type of forgiveness on those that have harmed them. That's it.
I think Marie Cobbs has a question or something to say.
Unfortunately, something is wrong with my video that you can't see my face, and I tried to see what it was.
Well, we can hear you though.
Good. In relation to harm and some people who you care about, and they are doing things intentionally or not to harm you. I think that, as a UU, and trying to apply the first principle, you still have to realize that people have to be held accountable for what they're doing. I mean, you can't, if someone is harming you, and I can't see how you can forgive them if they don't accept their responsibility for what they're doing. And I think that's what has happened in our society in general, with a number of people. They seem to think that what they're doing is not harmful. For example, you see what's happening in the killing, the last killing of the ICE agents. They are given permission to do what they're doing. But we as a society know that this is very harmful, and something has to be done to make them accountable. The thing that I think about quite often, because at church Sunday, when some people found out that Lindsey Graham had died, there was somewhat of a celebration. But I still hold that he's a human being, and he should be held accountable for some of the policies that he's put, that, you know, when he was alive, he should have been held accountable. I don't celebrate anyone's demise. I look at the fact that they did a number of things to harm people, and those people who are still living and harming, I don't have much compassion for them, because they're not holding themselves accountable for the things that they've done.
Hmm. Are we done?
Richard, yeah, go on, please. I want to talk to Richard just for a moment before we leave.
Okay. I am going to say good night to all of you here. It's 9:06 p.m. and I have an early morning with a child who needs to go to summer school tomorrow. Be well, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you
so much. Thank you so much. Richard, would you be willing to share a bit how far